Are you a manager who is eager to change the trajectory of your career? I have spent the last 23 years as a Fortune 50 leader learning from other industry leaders how to break free from limiting beliefs and habits. On the Might in Motion podcast, we focus on the 4 M's: motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. We bring you leaders from Fortune companies, doctors, and entrepreneurs. Their stories of living their own might in motion will inspire you to create your own action plan and achieve your goals. Welcome to Might in Motion. Today's episode of Might in Motion is brought to you by Pantheon FM, Fortunes Magnified. Pantheon FM is changing the world through entrepreneurship. In this community, you will find everything you need to create, amplify, and monetize your world-changing business. Join us at pantheon.community/register/LAUA. Tonight, I am so pleased to bring to you Chuck Scharenberg, founder and senior consultant of More Profit, More Freedom. He leverages over 2 decades of experience to guide business owners in the U.S. and in Canada. Specializing in actionable plans, Chuck breaks down barriers, propelling businesses to double or triple in size. His unique skill lies in asking laser-focused questions, swiftly identifying obstacles hindering success. Chuck embodies more profit, more freedom, not just professionally, but personally, enjoying cycling, ethnic cooking, and fitness. Recognizing the evolving business landscape, he emphasizes the need for emotional intelligence. Chuck presents the social styles behavioral profile as a resource to enhance communication with key individuals in both business and personal spheres. In a world of constant change, thriving requires understanding not just how stakeholders think, but more crucially, how they feel. Chuck, welcome to Might in Motion. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Mariana. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited as well.
And I'm gonna add your content to the stage because this is gonna be an interesting episode because Chuck is gonna walk me through the social styles behavioral profile right here in action. So let's go.
All right. So, Mariana, I need you to be my participant as we go through this. And so you can see on the slide that both the company that presents social styles and me believe that this is an easy way to learn emotional intelligence and to use it. So when we look at business in our personal lives, as one of my participants said, it's all about communication.
Yes.
Somehow us understanding or their understanding that we understand what's important to the other person. And Mariana, I would like your help with this. I would like you to think about a person that you'd like to communicate with in a better way. Now you can choose a customer, staff, investor, vendor, or a community member. And all I need is a first name and what category they fit into.
Okay, I'm going to go with Mike, who is a customer.
Thank you for that. All right, so there's different ways that we might communicate. So especially with a customer, we might want to persuade or collaborate with them, maybe negotiate for one reason or another, support them in what they're doing well. And believe it or not, avoiding and accommodating is also a different way of communicating. And of course, there's compelling, where we compel somebody to go along with what's important to us. What you're helping me out with, Mariana, is talking specifically about how do people choose to buy our stuff. Now, it's been shown that people buy based on facts. And more importantly, they buy emotionally about how they feel. And so with that in mind, it's important to have a solution that, goes along with this. And so the solution that I know is that we address what people need emotionally and then back it up with facts. And so this is all a lead-in to talk with you about IQ and EQ. Now, IQ, as you know, and most people know, stands for emotional quotient. And it really means how people reason, their reasoning ability, or you can say how smart they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been thought that if you had the smartest people in the room, you'd get the best results. And the thought leaders on emotional intelligence are disagreeing. So the Oxford Language Dictionary is defining emotional intelligence in a very traditional way: capacity to be aware of, control, express one's emotion, and to handle interpersonal relationships judicially. And I've emphasized empathetically.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Daniel Goleman is one of the thought leaders on emotional intelligence. And he breaks it down a little more common sense words: understanding and managing our own emotions and influencing the emotions of others. And I've taken it a step further, if you will, tried to simplify it a bit more. We are honoring our own emotional needs while carefully considering the emotional needs of others. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think in a business sense, sometimes people forget this piece, but
Mhm.
it's so crucial because that allows you to create better connections and bonds
Mhm.
with your customers or your staff or your employees, etc., or even
Well,
a spouse.
good. Well, there are a number of emotional intelligence tools, um, and I work with them. There's the personality profiles, there's other resources, and those things that they have in common is that they ask people to exercise kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I prefer is the social styles behavioral profile. This was developed by Tracom, I'm sorry, and they see it as an interpersonal effectiveness training. And they contend that it's been proven that it's easier to learn, teach, remember, and apply than other EQ tools. So, Mariana, again, I need your help with this. We're working on this virtually, and I need you to take out a piece of paper and a pen.
Okay, I got my pen and I've got my paper.
Good. All right. So on that paper, I would like you to draw 3 boxes.
Anywhere on the paper?
Anywhere on the paper, make them medium size, enough room that you can draw inside them.
Okay. 3 boxes. Got it.
And in the first box, if you would draw a vertical line.
Okay.
And in the second box, a horizontal line.
Got it.
And in the third box, 4 quadrants.
Okay.
Now, next, I'd like you to remember the person with whom you'd like to have better communication. And I think you said his name is Mike. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. Now, does Mike tell more or ask more?
Tell.
Tell. So on your worksheet, put a check mark on the right hemisphere and put a circle around that check.
In the first box.
Yes.
Okay. On the right hand side, write tell
That's right.
and circle it.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Does Mike control his emotions, or is he more emotional?
Control.
All right. So if you would put a check mark in the second box in the upper hemisphere and put a circle around it.
Check mark with a circle.
Good.
Okay.
All right. So that indicates that Mike falls, for the purposes of social styles, he falls into the upper right-hand quadrant. So in your third circle, put a check mark with a circle around it in the upper right-hand quadrant.
Upper right hand quadrant with a circle around it. Okay.
Right. So we're going to go a little bit further with regard to Mike. Now, with your box, we're going to look at the items on the left and right side of this diagram. Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Good. All right, so I'm going to lead you through those questions. Does Mike speak slower pace or faster pace?
Slower.
Does he make fewer statements or more statements?
Fewer.
Is he quieter volume or louder volume?
Quiet.
Does he use non-directive, reflexive use of his hands or direct use of his hands, points for emphasis?
Oh, non-directive.
All right. Does he lean back or lean forward?
Forward.
And does he use indirect eye contact or direct eye contact?
Indirect.
Indirect. All right, so you can see you've got 5 check marks on the left hemisphere and 1 check mark in the right hemisphere.
Okay.
All right. So now
should I be checking that off, or are you checking that off?
well, I'm keeping. I've got my own,
Okay.
I've got my own worksheet over here.
Okay.
But, if you will, you can see that you've got the 1 check mark with the circle around it because of the work we did first.
Yep.
And now we're going to go on to the statements in the upper and lower hemisphere. So does Mike use a monotone or inflection?
More monotone.
Does he use task subjects or people subjects?
What does that mean?
Does he talk about things to do or the people that are going to do those things?
People.
Does he talk about facts and data or opinions and stories?
Facts and data.
Does he use less hand movement or more hand movement?
Less.
Is he rigid posture or casual posture?
Rigid.
Does he have controlled facial expressions or animated facial expressions?
Controlled.
Control. Well, once again, we've got 5 check marks in the upper hemisphere and only 1 in the lower, which kind of goes contrary to where we put Mike to start off with.
Yeah.
We put him in the upper right-hand quadrant, but this data shows us that he is in the upper left-hand quadrant.
Okay.
So however you want to mark that on the third, this one, I'm going to put a check mark without a circle in the third box in the upper left-hand quadrant.
Got it.
All right. So this was important because similar to other profiles, there's 4 options. And so you can remember earlier I talked about need and emotional need. So Mike is what's called an analytical style. And that means that he needs to be right. And his orientation is to be always thinking, what about this? What about that? What's the advantage of this? What's the advantage of that? That kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
All right. Now, the backup thing is what a person does when they're under stress. Now, because analyticals like to be right, if they're worried about being right, they're going to withdraw until they're certain. And their growth opportunity is to declare. So I like to joke about this and say, if there's ice cream on the table, there's 2 kinds of ice cream, chocolate and vanilla. And if the analytical withdraws, they don't get any ice cream. But if they're willing to declare, they get ice cream. So does any of this fit, Mike?
Yes, it does.
Okay, well, glad to hear. Well, let me just briefly go through the other quadrants with you. And you can think of some of your other customers, your vendors, your investors, or whatever, just if that helps. So the driving style is someone that, first let me say something about the analyticals. Analyticals, we need these people because these are the people that are the contract attorneys. They're the accountants that make sure that they get every detail right.
Yep.
When we look at the driver, these are people that need results. And so these are the people that are the generals, or they're the surgeon, anyone that's likely to need to be able to dictate.
Okay.
And so we need these people too. And they absolutely need results. And their orientation is to always be in action. They can't sit still. I have a mother-in-law like this. You know, it's always kind of like, where are we going? Where are we going?
Yeah.
Now, the downside, if you will, is these are people that are likely to dictate and say, no, you need to do it my way. Don't you know?
Mm-hmm.
And their growth opportunity is to listen. And I had a relative in my part that was determined that he was going the right direction east of the airport. And we would say, wrong way, wrong way. And finally, when we were hitting the dusty plains, he was willing to listen that he was going the wrong way. And so he turned around. All right, but that would be the kind of profile. So these are the people that we need to be our generals and that we need to be the surgeons and those kinds of professions. The expressive style is a person that needs approval. So these are the people that are the entertainers and the politicians. And their orientation is spontaneity. And so sometimes their mouth gets in gear before their head, and there is a repercussion. Their backup style can be to attack. And that is, it's not my fault, it's you misunderstood. All right, that kind of thing. And their growth opportunity is to check out how their behavior is affecting other people. Because someone felt attacked, they might be less willing to applaud.
Yep.
Make sense?
That does.
All right. Have you figured out anybody that fits into these two profiles so far?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then lastly is the amiable. So the amiable needs personal security. And a way that they get that is through their orientation for relationships. So these are people that are more likely to stay in a relationship, either in business or in their personal lives, longer than other people.
Okay.
And their backup style when they're in stress is to acquiesce to the other person so that they can stay in the relationship. Their growth opportunity is to initiate solutions. Now, I continue to work with a man who was in his father's business, and his father was a driver. And so he was continually acquiescing. Well, the father developed cancer and began to relinquish the driver style and actually encourage his son to initiate. And now that his father has passed on, he's very strong and self-aware, and he's initiating. So because of this conversation, I'd be curious, Mariana, as to what style you believe you are.
I think I am between amiable and expressive. Do you find that people tend to, is it easier for people to move from one to the other if it's adjacent versus that diagonal of moving from amiable into a driving style?
Short answer is none of us fit exactly in the center.
Yeah.
When I took this, I'm going to self-disclose, I'm an analytical.
Okay.
And to play it safe, when I took the 360, I put myself in the upper left-hand quadrant of the upper left-hand quadrant. And my 360 evaluators put me in the lower right section of the upper left-hand quadrant.
Okay.
Which allows me to talk. I'm going to get back to this in a minute as to why I was so excited about that. But right now, to answer your question, none of us are exactly due center.
Right.
So what you're acknowledging is that you are more emotive, and that there are some times when you really need personal security and other times when you need personal approval. Okay, and so I'm aware of my own situation where I was more of an amiable and less of an analytical.
Mm-hmm.
So that does happen. Now, the value of all of this, going back to being aware of our own needs and being respectful of other people's needs, is this will allow you to be more versatile.
Yeah.
And the definition of that is to recognize the difference in communication preferences and to adopt the other person's, to adapt to make the others more open and receptive. So this allows you to create more effective and productive relationships without losing who you are.
Right.
Now, in my own situation, I worked with a strong driver who very early before we knew about this thing, I asked him the question, how can I work with you better? And he said, Chuck, when I ask you a question, give me the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
If I need the detail, I'll ask for it. So I would actually tease him once in a while. I'd give him the bottom line and make him ask for the detail. All right. But this man was my mentor, and we had a class of 150 people. And these people were asked to, when they stood up to talk, say their name and say their social style. And then they couldn't help but demonstrate their social style.
Mm-hmm.
And when they tried to figure out Michael's style, they couldn't guess because he was so versatile in addressing them to meet their need.
Mm-hmm.
So, what questions do you have?
Well, do you find that if you look at the diagonals, do you find that amiable styles work better with driving styles because they're like that opposites attract type of mentality?
If people are self-aware, yes. And
Okay.
so my job is to help more and more people be self-aware.
Yeah.
And so I didn't talk about this, but the amiables are very often in support roles.
Mm-hmm.
These are the people that can do the same task over and over, day after day after day. So they're willing to accommodate to really accommodate.
Yeah.
So that is true. Now, the reality is probably in any organization, we need a little bit of these different styles. You know, you can see that the expressive might be great in sales.
Right.
The amiable can, this one client I have, I call him the steady Eddie because he is able to stay in relationship with people despite what's going on for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from looking at this, that whole emotional intelligence and being aware of the social styles, you know, it's hard to do. I think, especially if you're let's say going into a manager position for the first time, or you're starting to get clients for the first time. Being able to quickly navigate this space will help you get earlier wins because, to your point earlier, you're now communicating to others in the way that resonates with them.
Very true. I had a client who was very good at communicating with her boss and with her direct reports,
Mm-hmm.
and very bad at dealing with her peers. And
Mm-hmm.
because of this, she said, oh my goodness, now I can relate to the need that each one of them has because they're different.
Yeah, that's awesome because that is, I think, one of the, that's one of the things that many people, especially when you're new in leadership, just have a hard time being self-reflective,
Sure.
right? And being able to go through this exercise or working with somebody like you allows people to really be able to tune into that and leverage those skills, faster than waiting 20 years to learn it on your own.
I'm so glad we're on this call together. What are your top takeaways, though you might have already said them?
Yeah, so I think for me, some of the big ones you mentioned, kindness, and that going into like honor your own needs while honoring the needs of others is so important. And maybe that's because I'm more on that amiable scale that resonated so much to me. I think that's so helpful to be able to relate with customers, with direct reports, or even people above you. So that was one of my big takeaways. And the fact that now I can see people in my life in these different buckets because it's such a simple structure. It's easy to be like, oh yeah, that's a Jason. That's, a Casey. That's these people in my life I can easily put in these buckets.
Very good. Well, I will have the PDF of this available for you. I can send that to you after the call. Next question for me to you is, what might you do with what you learned?
For me, I can make tweaks now that I have this framework. I know how to approach others, specifically, the example we walked through, which was Mike. I can now approach that situation in a different way, my relationship with them in a different way. And that's really, really exciting. And I know we had done a similar exercise, gosh, probably 3 months ago. You and I were on a call and you walked me through this. And I took those lessons and I applied it in that situation. And it's made that partnership so much better.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to hear that. I remember that call very, very well. Very glad to hear that. I want to finish by just reminding you and all of our viewers that communication requires both IQ and EQ.
Mm-hmm.
And that the trick of this is to address what people need emotionally and then back it up with facts.
Yes.
And the one thing that if I have to pull it down to one word, it provides you with ways to be kind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, years and years ago, I studied Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers,
Mm-hmm.
and that was his mantra, kindness. But the other day, I'm driving down the highway, and one of these big electronic billboards is on the side of the road. And there's a picture of Dolly Parton. And right next to it is this quote: "Find the good in everybody. Kindness, pass it on."
Mm-hmm.
So if there's anything that we can take away from EQ and the social styles behavioral profile, I dearly, dearly hope that it helps all of us in business to be kinder to each other.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. In fact, that's something that, I talk to my girls about, and I'm like, hey, you don't have to be nice to everybody, but you should be kind to everybody.
Well, I'm looking at ways that this pays off in business. And for sure, Dolly Parton is a marvelous example about how kindness has paid off in business.
Yes.
So I will write a blog about that next
You
month.
should, because not only she gives back, I mean, she is truly like one of the best. As a Southern girl, I can say that.
Mariana, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've had a great time sharing this with you.
Chuck, I have to. This has been fantastic. And if people want to learn more, if they're like, man, that really resonates with me, or I want to dive in deeper, I want to take a class or have some that one-on-one coaching time with you, how can people get a hold of you, or what's the best way for people to learn more about this?
Well, I would delight in providing them with the same kind of service that I'm demonstrating here. And you can reach me. Hopefully, it's easy to remember. My website is moreprofitmorefreedom.com. LinkedIn is Chuck Scharenberg. And as far as book is available, this is one of these proprietary things that I paid a license for.
Mm-hmm.
And so typically there's not a book that the average person can work with. The idea is to work with me.
That makes sense. I love it. And I love that moreprofitmorefreedom.com. It's just a great resource that Chuck and skill that Chuck has that he loves to share with others. And I highly recommend you follow him on LinkedIn as well. He's always posting really great content, and he goes into lots of different topics like collaboration and other things that as leaders, I think is so helpful, or as business owners is so helpful. So Chuck, again, thank you so much for joining us on Might in Motion. I really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. I did as well.
Thank you for tuning into Might in Motion. If you learned something about motivation, momentum, mindfulness, or might, please like, comment, and share. Thank you.